Okay, let's turn from there to the national capital, where the big story is days after the Delhi government rolled back a ban on sale of fuel to banned vehicles, the Commission for Air Quality Management on Tuesday decided to widen the ban to cover the entire national capital region. The ban will take effect on November 1st. What it means is that diesel cars which are 10 years old will go off the streets as per the government, and 15 years for petrol cars. But there are so many policy flip-flops that car owners are left disappointed. Take a look.
Banned or not banned, or somewhere in limbo, Delhi's flip-flops over its end-of-life policy for vehicles has left many citizens confused, cheated, and financially burdened. Including this man, who had to sell his 88 lakh rupee Mercedes for the price of a second-hand hatchback. In 2010, Kamaljit Singh Saini bought a top-of-the-line Mercedes, a gift that matched his father's dream and the family's pride. But 14 years later, that same car was sold for just rupees 7.5 lakh. Not because it was faulty or polluting, but because of Delhi's blanket ban on diesel vehicles over 10 years old.
ये हमने एस मॉडल मर्सिडीज गाड़ी खरीदी और बेसिकली ये गाड़ी हमने कस्टमाइज करवाई थी पुणे से मर्सिडीज के शोरूम पे। हमको अप्रॉक्सीमेटली कोई 88 लाख टू 90 लाख की पड़ी थी। जो 15 साल का टैक्स था लाइफ टाइम, वो हमने पेड किया है। तो एकदम से कुल्हाड़ी चलने वाली बात है, परेशान भी हम रहते हैं। किस तरीके का क्या है वो।
And then there's Sanjay Gupta from Model Town, who bought a diesel i20 in 2015 for 8.8 lakh rupees, paying 77,000 rupees in road tax. He had assumed the car had a 15-year life. But 2 years later, the NGT reduced diesel car lifespans in Delhi to 10 years. Fearing that his car would be scrapped, Sanjay sold it in November 2024, only to get a fresh registration certificate from the Transport Department a month later, saying his car was valid till 2030.
डीजल की गाड़ी थी i20, करीब 9.5 लाख रुपए की मैंने उस वक्त पेमेंट करी, इंक्लूडिंग रोड टैक्स के। मुझे उस वक्त ये बताया गया था कि ये गाड़ी 15 साल के लिए वैलिड। ट्रांसपोर्ट डिपार्टमेंट ने हमें वैलिड पोल्यूशन सर्टिफिकेट दिया जो अप्रैल 25 तक वैलिड था। ट्रांसपोर्ट डिपार्टमेंट ही हमें आरसी इशू कर रहा है जो कि 2030 तक वैलिड है, 15 साल तक।
The confusion runs deeper. After the Delhi government rolled back its end-of-life vehicle policy, people whose cars were already impounded started asking, will we get them back? This is what the Delhi government had to say.
80 गाड़ियाँ जो पकड़ी गई थी, उसमें से काफ़ी गाड़ी को जो इम्पाउंड किया गया, उन्हें चालान काट के छोड़ा जा चुका है। अगर ऐसी कोई गाड़ी होगी तो उसे भी छुड़वाएंगे। नियम है कि पहली बार चालान काटता है, दूसरी बार ये पुराना नियम चला स्क्रैप की बात है, लेकिन अभी फिलहाल इसको रोक दिया गया है।
But most importantly, the rollback only affects the fuel-based end-of-life clause, not the court-mandated CAQM directives, which means even today, diesel automobiles older than 10 years and petrol ones older than 15 years remain illegal on Delhi's roads.
ये गाड़ियाँ अभी नहीं चल सकती। ये गाड़ियाँ क्योंकि हमारा जो वाहन पोर्टल है तो वाहन पोर्टल के हिसाब से दीज गाड़ी आर एक्सपायर्ड, और एक्सपायर्ड गाड़ी इज़ नो रजिस्ट्रेशन। नो रजिस्ट्रेशन का मतलब 192 सेक्शन पेनल्टी, which is 10,000 minimum starting, and it is for two-wheeler as well as for the four-wheeler same.
Policies that shift without clarity, vehicle owners caught between rules and reversals, and crores worth of cars sold for scrap. For Delhi's motorists, the road to compliance has become an expensive and emotional ride. Bureau Report, India Today.
So does the ban on old cars reduce pollution, as is now being claimed? Old vehicle ban, should there be a rethink? Why is the ban limited to Delhi and its suburbs? Should it be a national ban, if at all? I'm joined by two guests for quick comments because we are short on time tonight. Anumita Roy Chaudhary is Executive Director, Center for Science and Environment, focuses a lot on traffic. Chetan Bhutani is Associate Editor, Business Today, also looks at the auto industry closely. But first, Anumita, how do you interpret this? We've seen so many flip-flops. The government says first we are not going to allow fuel to be given to cars that are old beyond 10 and 15 years. Then it's forced to reverse it. Now it's saying November 1st is the new deadline. Are these flip-flops, if you can hear us? Okay, before Anumita apparently can't hear us. Why don't you take that, Chetan, explain to us why these old cars far more polluting than a swanky new diesel or petrol car?
Well, Rajdeep, correctly pointed out, these old cars are really contributing to about 28% of the entire PM 2.5 levels in Delhi. The major contributors to the pollution in Delhi constitute about 30% coming from industries, construction dust from 17%, road dust 15%, biomass burning 7%, and domestic sources 3%. And this is a report I'm quoting from the Terry ARI report. Well, the main reason for these polluting is, of course, the commercial vehicle fleets that need to be weeded out first. However, after the public outcry, I remember, Rajdeep, you were hearing the aggrieved consumers because the road tax that they paid was for 15 years, whereas their vehicle was weeded out after 10 years. So a big financial burden came out to those consumers as well, because not everybody is in a position to financially pay out a 10-year-old car and eventually buy a new car or a second-hand car for themselves, since a car is of a very valuable asset in the Indian household society. But to answer your question, Rajdeep, are old vehicles dirtier? A BS1 diesel vehicle, which is a pre-2005 vehicle, emits 28 to 30 times more of PM 2.5 versus a BS6 vehicle, which we currently drive on Indian roads. So to answer your question, Rajdeep, yes, older vehicles do emit, pollution, but yes, there are a lot of policy flip-flops that the central government, the state government, and the consumers have to be dealt with.
Let me take those policy flip-flops. Anumita Roy Chaudhary, your quick comment. Do you believe that it's necessary to phase out all old cars by law, by diktat, in the manner now that the government intends to do come November 1st?
No, Rajdeep. So while I believe that older vehicles need to be addressed for fleet renewal so that you can replace very old and end-of-life vehicles with new, clean, and zero-emission vehicles, but the method has to be different. The sweeping ban, age-based ban, blanket ban is not going to work at all. So we already know, and there are systems, that you need to identify the most polluting end-of-life vehicles and then weed them out. And therefore, the whole system needs to be based on merit of emission performance and fitness, and wherever needed, selective ban along with incentives. That has to be the strategy. So while we
So
need
you're
to
saying, are you saying you can't have a fixed age that 10-year-old cars, 10-year-old diesel will be weeded out, 15-year-old? You're saying case by case basis? How will the government be able to do that?
Yes. So for instance, for commercial vehicles already, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has already notified the rule that the commercial vehicles will have to undergo mandatory testing in automated testing stations that are being set up across the country, and also it has been set up in Delhi. And there they should identify, based on those tests, what are those end of life and unfit vehicles. But yes, the criteria for defining end of life for private vehicles is still not that clear. And we need those systems. But then also remember that it's just not taking the vehicles only to the testing stations. The Supreme Court in 2018 had already directed the Delhi government and the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways to institute the system of remote sensing monitoring, which goes beyond the current PUC test, which means you don't have to take your car somewhere to get it tested. But as you are driving on the road, the machines by the roadside will monitor you, and those pilots have already happened in Delhi. But now rules have to be notified for doing that. So a lot of smart
but ma'am, that's, the worry is that car drivers are worried is that they will get caught in a near bureaucratic maze. What happened a week or so ago, cars were being impounded and fuel was being denied to those with old cars. Now, can you do it by diktat in that manner? Is that the way forward?
That's not feasible with such large number of vehicles. And also, technically, it is also not even advisable that you cannot continuously keep taking 10-year-old and 15-year-old out from Delhi, Gurgaon, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, and dump them in other regions. So you have to find other ways. And we know from the evidence that it is not all vehicles, it is the selected vehicles which contribute disproportionately to the high pollution. So now, see, when you do not have a system in place, then ban remains your only weapon to address the problem. But not in this age, not in Delhi. When we have the rules, we have the system, the state-of-the-art testing stations have already been set up in Delhi. Pilots on remote sensing have happened. Why can't we go for smart? One is the
So
smart.
would you say, in conclusion,
But second-
annual testing of every vehicle being made mandatory, annual testing, you pass the test, you can carry on with the car, you don't, that's it.
Especially after a certain age. Then you make the tests more frequent, also do a lot more on-road emission monitoring, but more important, you should also have a disclosure policy on the way the vehicles have been tested and their results. Otherwise, you may do tests and then through the continuous process of retest, you end up passing almost all vehicles. The system also has to work. So system, smart monitoring, transparency, digitization, and disclosure. That has to be the way forward.
Anumita Roy Chaudhary for joining us there. I hope someone in the Delhi government is listening. All these flip-flops have only, in a way, undermined public confidence in the system. Chetan and Anumita, appreciate you joining me.